With the exception of brand new electric vehicles, every automobile brand that can be found on the road today has a history behind it. There is one in every Ferrari, as well as in every Ford, Chrysler, Aston Martin, Jaguar, and Lamborghini, and the list goes on. In contrast to the stories of Enzo Ferrari and Henry Ford, however, the life of Louis Chevrolet, who founded Chevrolet, is somewhat tragic. His journey, despite being fraught with challenges and fraught with passion, was nothing short of impressive. He was a patrol head. In the world of automobile manufacturing, Chevrolet is consistently ranked among the most reputable brands. It has been a familiar name long before we were born. The history of Chevrolet, on the other hand, begins with an immigrant mechanic who had a passion for racing. On the racetrack, Mr. Chevrolet established his superiority and began to gain a reputation for himself. The sudden decision he made to leave the company that he had co-founded was the turning point of his life. Since that time, the Swiss racer's life has been marked by a series of defeats and feelings of hopelessness. He eventually found himself working as a simple mechanic in one of Chevy's factories in Detroit. Imagine living a life in which the company that bears your name is raking in millions of dollars, while you are forced to scrape together enough money just to get by. But how did a Swiss bicycle mechanic with no prior experience in the auto industry build one of the most successful automotive companies in the world? Why did Louis Chevrolet decide to resign from the company that he had founded? Well, let's find out. Hello, aspiring entrepreneurs. Welcome back to our channel, Businessman, where we inspire you to do something great for your business. And today, we return with the amazing yet tragic story of how Chevrolet was founded. We hope everything is going well for you. But before we go any further, we would like to request that you subscribe to our channel and also hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any future videos. Okay, let's start. Louis Joseph Chevrolet was born on December 25th of 1878 in La Chaux-de-Fonds, Switzerland. He was the second son of Joseph Felician Chevrolet, who worked as a watch and clock maker, and Angelina Marie Chevrolet. He was named after his maternal grandfather, who was also named Mahon. Growing up, Louis had 6 brothers and sisters to play with and learn from. When Louis was approximately 6 years old, his family made the move to Beaune, a small town located in the Burgundy region of France. His father provided him with a foundation in basic mechanical skills and drilled into him the significance of precision in the production of machine parts, both of which contributed to his son's later success as an engine designer. Chevrolet found work as a tour guide in a nearby wine cellar so that he could contribute financially to the family. Chevrolet came to the conclusion that the process of transferring the wine from one barrel to another was too time-consuming, so he designed a wine barrel pump. This invention garnered Chevrolet praise in the community and was utilized in the Burgundy region for many years. In Beaune, bicycle racing was a popular weekend sport. It was here that Chevrolet first became interested in pursuing a career in the automotive industry. He tried out different gear ratios until he discovered the one that worked the best with his level of physical ability. Chevrolet began his career as an apprentice in a bicycle shop when he was still in his early teens and had recently graduated from elementary school. The owner had a De Dion tricycle with 1.25 horsepower that was frequently inoperable. Chevrolet spent his free time working on the motorcycle, for which he had purchased repair manuals. He quickly identified the issue, contacted the manufacturer for replacement components, and restored full functionality to the device. After that, he started a business in which he would construct bicycles during the winter months and then sell them to tourists during the summer months under the name Frontenac, which was the name of the governor of France's North American colonies in the 17th century. Later on, he established an automobile company in the US and gave it the same name. Around this time, Chevrolet encountered his first automobile and was immediately taken aback by the remarkable new machine. Because of the lack of success in his bicycle manufacturing business, Chevrolet went to work as an apprentice at the auto factories of Derek, Hotchkiss, and Dion Bouton. After getting a job with the Morse Auto Company in 1898, he was assigned to work at an automobile dealership in Montreal, Canada in 1899, when he was already 21 years old. After working as a chauffeur mechanic for a period of half a year, Chevrolet eventually settled in the borough of Brooklyn in the state of New York. He was employed by the D. Dion Bouton Motorette Company, and not long after that, he was presented with the opportunity to fill in as a race car driver for Fiat in New York City. In 1901, a year after the passing of his father, he relocated the remainder of his family to the United States. The year 1915 marked Chevrolet's naturalization as an American citizen. In the early days of the automobile industry, companies that were successful in road, track, hill climbing, and endurance races were able to generate significant amounts of positive publicity for their products. When Chevrolet raced at the old Hippodrome in New York's Morris Park on May 20th of 1905, he defeated two outstanding racers named Barney Oldfield and Walter Christie. This victory was the beginning of Chevrolet's meteoric rise to the top of the racing world. He set a new record for the fastest lap around the track by driving a Fiat with 90 horsepower and completing it at 68 miles per hour, only slightly slowing down around the curves. In the later part of that year, he won a 1-mile race held in Cape May, New Jersey, by defeating both Walter Christie and Henry Ford. Moreover, he tied the knot with Cézanne Truffaut. Charles Louis and Alfred Joseph were their two sons, both of whom were born to them. The 27-year-old Chevrolet became an instant celebrity, which led to William Durant, the founder of General Motors, taking an interest in the company. In 1907, Durant extended an invitation to Chevrolet and his younger brother Arthur to come to Flint, Michigan to compete for a position as his personal chauffeur. In the early days of auto racing, drivers won for more glory than money, and they frequently held jobs within the automotive industry to make ends meet and provide for their families. A race was held by Durant in Flint, Michigan, behind the Buick plant. Because Arthur was a more cautious driver than the other applicants, he was hired to be the chauffeur. After Louis Chevrolet easily took first place in the race, the Buick racing team approached him about joining the team. During the subsequent 3 years, Chevrolet was responsible for many victories for the Buick team. One of these victories included the Yorick Trophy race in Lowell, Massachusetts, which was 158 miles long. Auto racing historians of the era claim that the only reason Chevrolet ever dropped out of a race was because of mechanical problems with his vehicle. Then, between 1905 and 1920, Chevrolet lost the equivalent of 3 years due to serious accidents and spent that time recovering. He had so many collisions that he felt it necessary to install a stake in the middle of the vehicle. Many times, the stake saved his life, but it did not save the lives of the riding mechanics who worked for him. In the end, he came up with the idea for the roll bar, which is now required equipment for all race cars. In 1909, Chevrolet opened a garage in the city of Detroit, Michigan, where he began the process of designing, constructing, and testing automobile engines with 4 and 6 cylinders. His friends said that he was a perfectionist and an extremely hard worker who routinely put in 16 hours of work each day. He abhorred passing on responsibility to others and preferred to handle the majority of the significant responsibilities himself. Chevrolet was also described as having a short temper and a lack of patience. Although he was extremely loyal to his family and friends, taking orders from other people was not one of his favorite things to do. When Durant was fired from General Motors in 1910 due to a disagreement with the company's stockholders, Chevrolet followed him out the door and offered to design a compact and luxurious touring car. As a result, he was able to design a car with 6 cylinders that he called the Chevrolet. It was a testament to his design abilities. In 1912, 3,000 automobiles were purchased despite having an exorbitant list price of $2,150 each. Over the next 2 years, it sold 16,000 vehicles, resulting in a profit of $1.3 million and generating revenue. His vehicle was the first to have a counterbalance crankshaft, the first gear shift lever placed in the middle of the floor, and the first out-of-the-way emergency brake located beneath the dashboard. But when Durant introduced a more affordable model under the Chevrolet nameplate in an effort to compete with Ford, Chevrolet made the decision to leave the company in 1914. He was eager to get back into racing, but he did not want to be associated with cars that were considered to be of low quality. Before the stock's value could rise, he parted ways with it and sold it to Durant. His investment was in the Chevrolet Automobile Company. Chevrolet was able to establish itself as a highly successful independent race car designer. In 1914, he established the Frontenac Motor Company and went on to construct 4 different racing vehicles. The 1916 Indiana 500 Classic was competed in by all 3 Chevrolet brothers, but none of their Frontenacs were able to cross the finish line. The Blood Brothers Machine Company commissioned Chevrolet to build a brand new automobile known as the Cornelian in 1915. Instead of working with steel, he started working with alloys. He emphasized how important it was to have a small vehicle with 4 cylinders and a weight of fewer than 1,000 pounds that had a better power-to-weight ratio. Between 1916 and 1919, the majority of industrial nations participated in the production of materials to support the war that was taking place in Europe. The automobile manufacturer Chevrolet started experimenting with aircraft engines. In addition to that, he worked for American Motors as the company's vice president and chief engineer. Following the conclusion of the war, Chevrolet got back into the auto racing industry when he picked up his brand new vanadium steel steering arms. Before they had been heat-treated, he came dangerously close to causing a catastrophe for himself and the racers that he was coaching. Every single one of the steering arms failed, with the exception of the one on the vehicle that his brother Gaston was driving. Gaston was behind the wheel of his 1920 Frontenac with a straight 8-cylinder engine, which won the Indianapolis race. In 1912, this was the first time that a car built in the US had won a race at the Indianapolis Derby. The American racing fandom went absolutely insane. Chevrolet continued to compete in races until November of 1920, when his younger brother Gaston was killed while competing in a race in Los Angeles. Tommy Milton took the wheel of a Monroe Frontenac, which was designed by Chevrolet and built by Chevrolet, and won the Indianapolis race in 1921. Soon after this, the Frontenac Motor Company went out of business, and C.W. Van Ranst, a former engineer for Duesenberg, convinced the Chevrolet brothers to build and sell special cylinder heads for souped-up Model T Fords that they called Frontifords. During their most productive period, they produced 60 heads in a single day. After the release of the Model A, the Chevrolet brothers were no longer able to maintain their successful business. Chevrolet was not a particularly astute or successful businessman. In addition to the fact that he was unable to benefit from the remarkable expansion of the Chevrolet Motor Company and its subsequent integration with General Motors, he also lost a significant amount of money in his attempt to produce a line of Frontenac passenger cars. This setback prevented him from capitalizing on the impressive growth of Chevrolet Motor Company and General Motors. An investment of $1 million was made by Alan A. Ryan and the Stutz Motor Car Company in order to begin manufacturing a new line of Frontenac passenger cars as an integral part of the Stutz line. Chevrolet was forced to take on all of Ryan's Frontenac Corporation of Delaware's debt because production had to be curtailed as a result of the Depression that occurred in 1922. Despite this, he was the first manufacturer to fit the car with 4-wheel brakes and held the patent for the flexible steering wheel, which he invented and patented in the US. In addition, he had a fleeting association with Albert Champion, the man who established the Champion and AC spark plug empires. Instead of making a fortune with Champion, the two men got into a huge argument about a personal matter, which eventually led to a physical altercation between them. Chevrolet was passionate about automobiles throughout his life, but he also had a variety of other interests. In 1925, he gave speedboat racing a try for the first time and ended up winning a competition in Miami, Florida. He was also very good at golf and trap shooting, two sports in which he competed and won many amateur competitions. A powerful aircraft engine, known as the Chevrolet 333, was among the first products manufactured by the Chevrolet brothers. The failure of that business was due to poor management, which also led to a rift between the two brothers. Following this, Chevrolet partnered with a Baltimore Ford dealer named Glenn L. Martin to form a new aircraft company. However, during the stock market crash of 1929, Chevrolet was unsuccessful in competing with Martin. Later on, Martin built a prosperous business on the foundation of this engine, which he referred to as the Martin 4333 or the Martin Bomber. In 1934, Chevrolet accepted a position as a consultant at the Chevrolet division of General Motors. He remained in this role until 1938, when a cerebral hemorrhage forced him to retire due to the severity of the condition. The later years of his life were filled with melancholy. His eldest son died in 1934. When his sister's house in New Jersey caught fire, the majority of his memorabilia and engineering drawings were among the items that were lost. On June 6 of 1941, while Chevrolet was traveling from his retirement home in Florida to the city of Detroit, Michigan, he passed away. Holy Cross Cemetery, which is close to the Indianapolis Speedway, is where he was laid to rest, right next to his brother Gaston. The year 1969 marked the year that Chevrolet was inducted into the Automotive Hall of Fame, which served as a recognition for his pioneering achievements. In the meantime, the business that he had initially started continued to function. After regaining control for a brief period of time, Durand promoted her to the position of Chief Executive Officer of the company. Even after he left the company on multiple occasions, Chevrolet continued to be the most successful brand produced by the corporation for a number of years. In the late 20s, General Motors was able to unseat its longtime competitor, Ford Motor Company, and take the top spot in the US for the production of automobiles thanks to the success of its products. The pioneering spirit that Louis Chevrolet instilled in the company at its inception was, to a large extent, preserved in the brand. This particular company was the first in the history of the American automobile industry to develop a project for a small car after the end of the Second World War. But unfortunately, the project had to be shelved because customers were more interested in purchasing large luxury automobiles at the time. The company was one of the first to make widespread use of automatic transmissions in the year 1950, and in 1953, the Chevrolet Corvette, which had been America's most famous post-war model, became the only American production sports car that was available to the public. This automobile evolved into a cultural icon during its era, and it was largely responsible for setting fashion trends in the automotive industry. At the tail end of 1958, the manufacturer made available to its clientele a line of automobiles that featured completely redesigned original bodies, potent 6- and 8-cylinder engines, and automatic transmissions. On December 25th, the world will commemorate the 144th anniversary of the birth of Louis Chevrolet, a well-known car designer and racer. In spite of the fact that he was the founder of the well-known company that bears the same name, and his automobiles are among the most well-known in the US and the rest of the world, he lived out the remainder of his life in obscurity and destitution, and the only thing that his descendants have inherited from him is a famous name. We have reached the end of our video. We hope you enjoyed it, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comment section down below, whether positive or negative. It will help us improve. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well. Bye for now. Take care. In the next video, we will bring you another interesting and inspiring story.